Hi guys, welcome to Chatline. It's your girl Taya Nicole. I'm here with you. How are you guys doing today? So it's episode 8 of Chatline podcast. I'm actually thinking about ending season 1 when we do episode 10. That's what I'm thinking about because I kind of have an idea for season 2's announcement, but I'm not for sure. So I'm just saying that. What's been going on? So tomorrow is a very, very important day. May 10th, Chatline Podcast will be hosting its first single ball tennis match. I'm thinking about doing kind of like a recurring every other weekend. There's a reason for that, but I don't need to get into detail. But maybe just like a little bit of a recurring once or twice a month. We can do the tennis match. But for now, May 10th, 10 a.m., I will be out at Gillum Park, the tennis courts off of 39th. So if you happen to be in the area, if you happen to love tennis, if you happen to want to meet some people, if you're single, if you're ready to mingle, even if you're not, even if you just want to come out and have a good time and meet new people and have friends, make connections, network, whatever the case is, Chatline Podcast is hosting its very first event tomorrow morning. So I'm very, very excited about that. And I really hope people show up. Even just a few people. I hope a few people show up. All right. So today's episode is about the 70s. We're talking 70s sex revolution. Okay? We're talking they felt safe, but they really weren't safe. They were free because they had freedom in their sexuality. And that's how, okay, we just gonna dive right in. All right, we gonna dive right in. So let's go back to the 60s. You got your free love movement. This is where people start to become, hippies, quote unquote, and they start to kind of branch out and be more, we're with the peace. We're all about positivity. You can do whatever you want to do. There's no rules. You got to smoke your pot, smoke your devil's lettuce, have a good time. Quote unquote, what we call it, gardening, quote unquote, gardening, things of that nature. Now, in the free love movement, there was a lot of controversy, especially with those that believed more into a different type of society. We don't need to get into details, but a different type of society that I did not like the idea and basically thought they were dirty, messing around and sleeping around with each other and just not doing whatever. So I like to think that the 70s is still a direct hit of the free love movement. I don't really think there's a big of a difference, even with most of the research, other than the heavy disco influence, the heavy in openness of LGBTQ and how it got started and how a lot of the clubs implemented a lot of drag without trying to give the praise or the love to that crowd. They were implementing their world. It's crazy. We speak on Studio 54. Studio 54 was only open for 3 years. It was only open for 3 years, and it is one of the biggest things that you can talk about in any type. Whenever you speak of the 70s, everyone thinks about Studio 54. It's the first thing I wanted to research, especially when I knew I wanted to do this topic. That was my main source for any type of research, was definitely with the club era, the mega disco, the construction parties. If, for example, a construction party down in 1980, it was where a casino was being built and they literally were throwing parties as all of the construction stuff was up. So the theme was to dress up as like a construction man and come out and have a good time and you party. Celebrities did not have, it wasn't like it is now, celebrities were much more safe. They were coming out, singers were coming out to these clubs and to these parties, having a good time with them. Now, I'm not saying sexually, this is all alleged. We'll deep dive into the sexual side, okay? But for now, I'm just talking partying and having a good time. The celebrities were definitely involved. There were times where I was reading a story of a quote-unquote doctor giving out Quaaludes, literally passing them out in Studio 54 as like refreshments. Like, here you go. Go ahead and go into a sedation and lay onto the ground or whatever you choose to do. I'm sure if you mix it with like some type of with alcohol, I'm sure you probably get one of the most craziest highs. So just imagine all of those lights, all of that music, that beat just pumping and bumping, and your doctor next to you just gave you a Quaalude in the middle of a club with a celebrity sitting right across from you. Yep, that's a night you could have possibly ran into. Even now, we have crazy nights just like that. But if we think about it, the 70s revolution, in order for us to be able to even have porn, can we think about that for a second? Porn was created mostly in the 70s. They went to the Supreme Court to get that passed to be able to produce pornography. I like to say that 70s pornography is real. They was really bumping and grumping. It wasn't no dang on faking and no. Them movies was long. They was thought out, and they was putting their heart, they sweat, and their tears in it. All right, quote unquote. That's what they was doing. And then pornographies from the 70s. Also in the 70s, sexual speech and erotic publications were able to be put out into the world. They grew at an alarming rate, which in hindsight affected the sexual behaviors of the generations coming after them. So in that revolution, we had freedom of speech, pornography, nudity. It was easy to access nudity. It became more of a high fashion thing. It was compared to how in the love movement in the 60s, it was more of a hippie movement. In the beginning of the 70s, people were kind of dirty. Like a lot of people say that if you look at the movies that were shot in New York in the 70s and the 60s, it wasn't a lie. It was absolutely dirty. So nudity and sexual contact and sex and things of that nature became, I wouldn't say strictly just high fashioned or high value, but it became glamorous in a way. 70s was glamorous. It was self-expression, love, art, sexuality that was open. People were not afraid to say that they were homosexual. People were not afraid to talk about their multiple partners that they're having sex with. Going to sex parties, that is the height of sex parties. Nowadays, if you want to get involved in any type of sex party or something, it's a word of mouth, or it's not talked about in an open place. You kind of ask that person who asked that person. But back in the day, honey, no. The little warehouses on the side of the road that were shut down or that were condemned or tore down, they were turned into sex parties, okay, every Wednesday night down in New York. So that's what I'm saying. Sex was just, it had a different spin on it. It wasn't so scary. I was reading some personal articles and personal stories of people that grew up in the 70s that were teenagers or early college students, and they spoke about how everybody was either on the pill and just having a good time and they didn't care until probably the middle of, towards the 80s, they did get AIDS. And I started seeing kind of a repetition in that. They were all kind of telling the same stories. In the 70s, we was kicking it. We didn't care. We was going down to Times Square. Yeah, it was dirty, but it was whatever. We had the best outfits. We had our boots on. We had our clothes. We was having a good time. And then towards the 80s, they started seeing some of their fellow friends were getting sick and frail and passing away. I was looking at a lot of different photos from this amazing photographer, author, activist, editor, Jeffrey Escoffier, who was being interviewed. And I was looking at the photos that he was doing and some of the quotes that he was talking about back into the 70s. And it was kind of the same story that I had read from other people, just, talking about their life stories in the 70s, about how he started to see his friends, sadly, go frail and pass away. In his opinion, for the Cultural Revolution, a huge shift was in discourse. The most important dimension of the sexual revolution was the 60s and the 70s, and it increased the freedom of the sexual speech. That is where I feel like we have the freedom that we have today. That is why a lot of things came to head. I feel like in our generation, we speak a lot about either what is right and what is wrong. And I feel like because of these revolutions that we went through, sadly, one revolution is always going to bring another revolution. So following this, we had our AIDS, HIV revolution, which created kind of a more, I wouldn't say it was a divide. It was definitely divided communities. Heterosexuals they never seem to be as open to homosexuals. Like, that is something that we're just now starting to get accustomed to and being fine with. But that took a fight. That was something that had to be fought. And sadly, these revolutions of sexual freedom and sexual speech and things of that nature, it came with progression, and it also came, sadly, with destruction. So he also speaks about how back in the day, there were certain comedians who would make comments, if they were to say like cunt or fuck, you could get arrested. You could get in trouble for saying things like that. Once it became okay, or not just okay, but once it became accepted that sexual speech was on the rise and that it was okay for people to publicly make those comments, either they are a comedian, in a song, in a movie, whatever the case is. I also saw here that some type of sexual entertainment that they had back in 1974. Yes, baby. They said the Let My People Come. It was a sexual musical. Okay, it was a sexual musical featuring nudity, and it's a little bit explicit. If you want to look it up, definitely Google it. You'll see what I saw. It did look good. I definitely think, like, in my opinion, for me, why I picked this topic was because I absolutely adore the 70s. The drugs was ridiculous. I thought that it was absolutely hilarious when I saw the quote-unquote doctor walking around with Quaaludes in his pockets, giving them to people as if they were refreshments. That's crazy. But I've also heard where even in this day's time, you could get access, maybe not to like something like Quaaludes, but you could get access to other types of drugs. But where do we get that from? Like, we have to pay homage to the generations before us and learn about what they had to do and what they had to endure. Being arrested for publicly speaking and saying something in a way because it offends somebody else is ridiculous. We can also think about how back in the 70s, there was no such thing as no walk of shame. Like, everybody was sleeping with everybody and going home at all times of the night, all times of the day. So there was no such thing as no type of walk of shame. Like, you were coming from a sex party, you knew what I was doing, and good morning to you. Like, and so what? They knew you was high. But I do understand too, like, the rise of coke was ridiculous, but it was like glamorized, as if coke was not crack. I don't know who tried to make that switch, but baby, it's the same. It ain't no different. Just leave it the hell alone. All right, I don't care how fun you think you're doing. You're doing coke, cocaine, whatever. In the 70s, they were also doing marijuana as well. I don't know why I said doing marijuana. They were also smoking marijuana as well. So doing coke and smoking marijuana, because the 60s was more psychedelic, okay? That's where you was getting your ecstasy, your pills, your, like, I don't know, whatever other psychedelic, mushrooms, shrooms, things of that nature. That's what you were doing in the 60s. In the 70s, it turned a little bit because you needed the pump, the the down, the up, the down, the up, the down. Because you're taking the coke, you get the up, you hit the weed, you take the down, because you got the disco, the lights are going, you're pumping, you're bumping, you're having a good time. I mean, the stories, for those that survived the time, I'm telling you, the stories are absolutely amazing. I mean, quote unquote, from different photographers, even though things did end a little sad because of the AIDS and HIV happening in that revolution following in the 80s. In the 70s, they was having a good time. They had the BDSM scene. That's when it kind of hit the scene. There was the Hellfire Club. That was on the corner of 9th Avenue and 14th Street. That was a place where there was a lot of going-ons, okay? I read about that place in 3 different stories, all right? I need to do a whole separate episode of what was going on in the Hellfire Club off of 9th Avenue and 14th Street in New York. Okay? In that particular place, there was a lot of, how do I put this? A lot of BDSM themed nights, and you would see a lot of things that we know that we see now on a video, but you would see it in person, but multiple people around you, like in person. So I don't know. That'll have to be probably like a separate episode, like a BDSM episode. I would be down for that. I would definitely be down for that. So yeah, basically in the 70s, a lot of people just felt better about expressing themselves. Gay clubs were on the rise, disco, mega discos. Celebrities were not afraid to come out. People were definitely high on coke and Quaaludes, but it's okay. They were still having a good time. The cities were definitely dirty. The cities were dirty, but the pants was even dirtier. Do you hear me? They were even dirtier inside the bedroom. So it didn't even matter what was going on in the streets. It didn't even matter what was going on in the streets, because in the sheets, 70s was getting some freaks. All right, that's what's going on. Now, some of the other stuff that I saw too was that, like, I think that the culture of moving just having multiple sexual partners and moving around and not caring, I do think it was a little bit created from the 60s, 70s free love movement. Because, and sadly, that is a staple that has created to run through this damn country. You know what? We're not even going to get into that. But I'm so sick of the friends with benefits and only just wanting to sleep around. I'm sick of it, but I do understand it. And I was having a side note here. We're going to have a side note with Chatline like we always do. I was having a conversation with a young man who said that he doesn't want to be in a relationship because he feels like young women have sadly created like a fairy tale way of life. And this isn't my first time hearing this, sadly. I've heard it from, just guys that I'm cool with, guys that I'm close with, guys that I'm trying to romantically be involved with, whatever. They've kind of said the same thing, was that they feel like certain girls set the tone that is unrealistic, quote unquote unrealistic, or fairy tale. And it's like, it's a little bit confusing, because I'm sorry, forgive me for wanting to be treated like a lady and a young girl. Now, I do understand that it does seem like, in their defense, it seems like, okay, well, I can never make you happy, or they can never satisfy a girl, especially now because of her fairy tale ideas of constantly needing to be either reassured verbally, reassured financially, physically, mentally, whatever. They feel like the reassurance, in my opinion, the reassurance is fairy tale like. So I just think that's absolutely ridiculous. I do. I don't really know how we got on this topic. I don't know how we drilled off onto this, but I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, I do understand why. Never mind. We're going to bring it right back, guys. Circle through. There we go. All right. So back to what I was saying. The culture of being young and just wanting to have multiple partners and sleeping around, I believe that stemmed from their 60s and 70s of a love, freedom movement. The people that did probably have their kids or whatever, they ended up having kids and kept moving, whatever. But most of those people didn't really have kids. And they spoke about that. Like, a lot of the stories that I was seeing, they were so young that they did not want children. Then they got the shit scared out of them for freaking 10 years straight because everybody was having HIV and AIDS. So they locked their doors and they didn't have kids. And then they get to the 90s and they're already older. So like a big generation of the 70s missed out on parenthood because they were really just freaking scared from the AIDS and the HIV revolution, which is absolutely scary when you think about it. Because of course, I wasn't born in that time, so I don't really know what it felt like. But just from some of the research that I've seen, the videos that I've seen, projects that I've had to do for school and things like that, the HIV and AIDS were taking people down. People were going down so fast. And you can, like, the pictures that I've seen of people in hospital beds, it is completely so sad. It's just, it's really scary on how it happened, especially with the downfall. 60s, happy, 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 70s, happy, happy, happy. And then towards the end of the 70s, you can tell, okay, there was a lot of things going on in the world, especially with America. There was a lot of things going on. But on top of just having a good time, being disco, being lively, having the music, doing all that, there was a downfall, like complete downfall, because now their friends and people, their loved ones and everything was dying. And it was happening very rapidly, and it was happening very quickly. And that's very scary for a lot of people, I'm sure. We lived through COVID. Think about that. We lived through COVID, and it lasted for what? 2-3 years? Oh my God. Speaking of COVID, I had a conversation with someone about COVID and about how they think that COVID ruined like a lot of families. COVID ruined a lot of like friendships, a lot of people, because of the stuff that was in the shots. We're going to have a silence, because I don't have really much of an opinion on it, because I don't know, but I definitely pondered upon it, so I'll let you ponder upon that too. If you know anyone around you that like either something happened like after COVID, whatever, after they got their shots, regardless if it was, I'm not going to say death, because he wasn't speaking about death. He was speaking about like life changes, like families breaking up, or I guess deaths too. Yeah, people passing away, older people passing away, younger people passing away suddenly for no reason. So yeah, we're just gonna have a silence. All right, now back to what I was saying. We would understand how that feels because we went through COVID. So we would understand how it feels to kind of see things happen very rapidly and very quickly, and the fear that starts to set into you. So I personally think that a lot of people from the 70s set out from parenthood, which is very, very understandable, because I would have to, like, probably after COVID, for a lot of various reasons, I would consider sitting out from, I wouldn't say from sitting out from parenthood, because I am a parent, but from creating more children. Like, there's a lot of reasons why you could think of that in your mind. So it's very understandable. Another thing that I actually had no clue about, and maybe it's because I could have went to the very most crappiest schools in the whole entire world. I have no clue. I was also homeschooled, so maybe I didn't pay attention in high school. So, maybe I just missed this lesson. But I had learned about the bicentennial. In the 1970s, America was absolutely obsessed with the bicentennial, which is basically that was the 200th anniversary of our event, of our Independence Day. And it lasted for a whole entire year, from July 4th, 1976, from April 1st, 1975 to July 4th, 1976. Okay, that was a whole entire year. They were basically having different parties, different events, different freaking parades for the bicentennial. I had no idea what that was. And when I was looking at a lot of people's comments about how they felt about the 70s and how they felt about their lives, they were talking about how America was just obsessed with a bicentennial. And they just remember going to various different lunches, various different events and parties all throughout that year, celebrating 200 years of American independence, quote unquote. And I say quote unquote for a lot of reasons. This is not a political podcast, but you already know, quote unquote. So, enough about that. Enough about our 70s. What did we get out of this? In the 70s, they had a great time. That's what I got out of this. In the 70s, they had the most amazing outfits. They had some really good music, some amazing music. There was a lot of serial killers. I want to talk about how happy they were on the surface and how a lot of them were not just dying from sexual diseases. They were dying from serial killers. As we have learned, especially now with true crime and true crime podcasts, we have learned that in the 70s, there was a lot of serial killers. It's ridiculous. I wonder if, it was easy for them to hide because everybody was just screwing around and just not really caring. They were high. They were off of Quaaludes. They were high off of Coke, high off of freaking marijuana. And they were just drinking pina coladas and grasshoppers because those were the most popular cocktails. Because Taya Nicole's going to search what the popular cocktails are. So pina colada was a really big popular cocktail in the 1970s. If you needed to know that. Now there's a little history for you, okay? So that's what we know about the 70s. And if I can travel back in time, I would want to go to the 70s for sure. So tomorrow, again, is May 10th. It is Chatline Podcast's first event. I am very, very, very excited, and I hope to see some friendly faces out there, some new faces out there. If you've been listening, I wanted to wait a little bit to do the next episode because life was getting very, very hectic. I really, really, really hope that soon life can smooth out a little bit more so I can focus entirely on Chatline. That is my goal, and that's something that's amazing. But of course, I am in school and I am a mom, so it is a little difficult sometimes. I feel like I'm not out there canvassing and in the street as much as I would love to be, but I'm hoping throughout this summer I will be able to see people more often and go out into these streets and get some opinions and ask some questions. I've got some questions for the people in KC, okay? Definitely got some questions for the people in KC. So I just want you guys to remember tomorrow, May 10th, Chatline Podcast will be at Gillum Park Tennis Courts. They're off of 39th Street. Tonight, May 9th, I will be out in these streets tonight. I think I'm going to go to the Warehouse and maybe Q. I'm not really for sure, but I am going to be out in Westport talking to people, getting some video, getting some content, expressing love and gratitude because that's as much as I can do. That's all I can pour out into this world. Find what you can pour out into this world, put it in a cup and pour it to everyone. I want you to remember that you are perfect in your own way. I try to remind myself that as much as I can, even when I don't like people or even if I'm upset with someone. They're perfect in their own way, We all are. We have to understand that. So love yourself because I love you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow in person. Tomorrow at Gillum Park's tennis courts off of 39th for Chatline Podcast first event. Super excited. So hopefully I'll see you guys. Next week's episode, I'm actually thinking about doing a little bit of a true crime. Since we did a 70s episode today, maybe I can find a 70s murder story, a little serial killer or something, and I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I'll chat to you guys later. Keep up with me on TikTok. I've been doing a lot of videos. I always do my hump days. I do my good morning motivational sparks for KC. So follow me on TikTok at Chatline Podcast. Follow me on Instagram at Chatline Podcast as well. I will be uploading a YouTube video this weekend. I'm not going to tell you what it's about. I will tell you what it's about. I think that I need to do a little bit more of a one-on-one on who I am as the host of Chatline Podcast, the creator of this podcast. So I want to sit down and have a nice little conversation about my love life and about who I am and what has brought me here with this platform and what my goals are with it and what I'm trying to do with Chatline Podcast. So if you're interested in that, follow me on YouTube as well or subscribe to me on YouTube at Chatline Podcast. So wherever you find at Chatline Podcast, if it says Taya Nicole, it is me. I think my pictures, like my face or whatever, is on my Instagram, and it's definitely on my TikTok. So I don't think you'll find anyone else. I mean, there is some other. I found one. I was like, you need to take this down. Take this down. But anyways, I hope you guys have a good rest of your Friday. I'm so happy I did this on Friday. I did take a little bit of a shot before I started this episode. So I hope you're getting litty out there. All right. And if you're thinking about it, Jen's gonna make you sin. So have a good Friday night. Peace, Casey. I'll see you later.